It would have been cool to have done the show from Syria. That would have been
It
cool.
would have.
Yeah.
It would have. Matter of fact, I think I was telling you. So we had the new our villa is in a place called Rumelan. It's our office and villa, and it's right next to where the former. It was built by the Russians in the 60s, where the Syrian oil company had their, over there. They build it's just like the Soviets. They build barracks for all their people. Everyone who works for the National Oil Company, they live in a compound. I mean, it's 1960s Soviet style with cancer stuff all over it, and so our villa's right next to there. And the new ambassador came to visit us, and he had a PSD team from the unit that's there. He stays with the unit, and it was funny. I didn't know anyone. It was from my former squadron, but the guy he was the troop sergeant major for the A squadron that had this PSD mission, and the month I retired was the day he came in the Army. So he goes, sir, I don't think we've known each other. I said, no, because when I was trying, you were just going through basic training.
Yeah, doesn't that make you feel good when you start thinking about those types of things? It's like, oh my God, man,
Well, yeah, I can't believe it's been 13 years. It feels like it was yesterday.
It does.
And,
yeah.
And I always used to tell people, I'm never going to be one of those guys.
What, with the hat and everything?
Well, the hat, and I'm not going to be, telling war stories, and when it was harder when I was there. And now I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those guys.
We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if it can be helped. It's so natural.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Well, welcome to the Mentors for Military podcast, brother. I appreciate
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I've watched you guys for a while now. And, I wasn't really sure, what, I get, mentors for, military, I get all that, and it's very cool. But I just wasn't really sure what your mission statement was, what your end state.
It's really about giving back. I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about, when we were in the military, it was all about coaching and mentoring individuals, and sometimes it was more about listening than it was talking, especially on the mentoring side. So when I came up with the name Mentors for Military, it was really that, having individuals share their stories or us share our story or, talk about a specific topic. And what we end up finding in a lot of cases is that people, as they're sharing their story and their journey of their military career, bring out so many great aspects of things that happen, like whether it's leadership or, a story of something gone wrong, either on a mission or by themselves, or it could just be, things and struggles that an individual goes through that you come out the other end of, or in some cases you're working to improve yourself on. And all of those things tend to mentor individuals who are listening to the show. And we get a lot of feedback from people that says, oh my God, I'm so glad, Jim came on your show. He helped me in so many ways with X. And that's really what it's all about. So when did you join the Army? And I know you were 175 and you came in, the Army's enlisted, and then we'll get into later on what ended up happening and, retiring as an officer, as Lieutenant Colonel. But when was it that you initially came in, Jen?
So I first came in, I joined the simultaneous membership program. I think that's what they call SMP. I went to college.
Oh, ROTC, SMP. Yes.
Yes. So you joined the Guard and ROTC at the same time.
Right.
And I did that for my father. My father was in the Army, commanded the jungle school in Panama. I was born in Panama in the 60s. So my dad was.
Paul loves Panama.
Oh yeah, I love Panama, man.
Great
love it.
Country.
Matter of fact, Paul, you probably Fort Sherman, where the old Ranger School was. That's where I was born.
Oh wow.
Yeah, my dad was the commander of it. He was the commander of it.
Holy smokes, that's cool.
Yeah,
it looks a little different now.
Yeah, exactly. So I joined the SMP program, joined ROTC. I didn't want anything to do with it. I did it for my dad. I thought I was going to the NFL. which changed about day 2 of summer camp my freshman year in college. I realized I wasn't that good.
Yeah.
But I had delusions of grandeur. But my little brother, from about the time he was 14, knew he wanted to be an airborne ranger. He was just, he enlisted at 17. I remember my parents having a sign for him, my mom crying. My brother's like, I'm out, I'm gone, going to be a ranger, And he is the hardest man I've ever met in my life. Bravest, guy's incredible. So I joined, and again, I didn't want to be in it. I was the long-haired, chasing girls, going to school. I'd go to ROTC classes, sit in the back. I couldn't tell you the difference between a sergeant and a general. Didn't know that.
Did you get pinned on E5? Because I believe back in the day, the ROTC S&P program allowed for you to basically be a sergeant because you were in the ROTC program.
No. So I came in as a PFC.
Okay.
I came in as a PFC in the Guard.
Yeah.
But again, you don't even have to go to the Guard your first 2 years. You just, you're in the program. I think I went twice in the first year, and then got waived for summer camp that year. So, make a long story of it longer. After my junior year of football, my grades didn't do good enough to keep my scholarship.
Oh.
Perish the thought. Not a Ranger who went to college and then left and joined the Rangers. It's like the story of the Ranger Regiment. Yep. And I remember my coach calling me. I was home over the holidays. He goes, "Hey man, you didn't have a 2.0. We got to rescind your scholarship here until you get your grades back up." He says, "You can't play spring ball." It's like, "Okay, no problems, coach." And my dad said, "What'd coach say?" So I told him. I said, "Hey, no problems. I'll just go back to school, get my grades up." My dad goes, "That's fine, but I ain't paying for it." I said, "What do you mean you're not paying for it?" He says, "Look, you pissed these last 2.5 years away. Why would I go ahead and piss another bunch of money out the door just so you can, he says, 'Hey man, it's time to pay the piper, pay the consequences.'
Yeah.
You got 3 choices. Get a job, right? Join the Peace Corps, join the Army. If you get a job, you're not living at home. Figure it out." Oh, my God. What do you mean? I was the chosen one. I was the chosen one. My brother was the one who knew what he was doing. So I remember calling my little brother, crying, "Kevin, what am I going to do?" He says, "Go to the recruiter, man. Just go down there." So I did. Same recruiter. Guy saw me coming. My brother and I were spitting images. It's like, here come more Reese's. Just what we want.
And did you end up going option 40 then? Going right in the Ranger Regiment, the Ranger School?
Yeah. I had the Ranger option.
Okay.
Sure did. So 2 weeks later, I was on a Greyhound bus for Fort Benning, Georgia.
Wow.
29-hour bus ride to Fort Benning from Washington, D.C. My parents took me to Union Station, jumped on it, boom. So I did that. So I did go to 175, did RIP. Now the funny thing is interesting enough, at the end of my sophomore year, this is the little twist. I'm home, had about a month off before we started camp football. Our PMS called me, who was a major. He says, "Hey Jim," he says, we had one slot, the airborne school, one slot. And the cadet who was a junior who was going broke his ankle. He says, "You're probably the only one in shape who could go.
Yeah.
Do you want to go?" And I'm like, okay, I'll go. Again, no clue. So literally 4 days later, fly to Benning. I check in, and the funny thing is this guy screaming at me, "Go find a park in the 43rd herd." Okay. I just wasn't, the screaming and yelling wasn't affecting me yet. I didn't realize that means just move your ass, dude, and I walk in these white barracks, and I air conditioned. This is nice. Walk in, bunk all by myself. Man, this is nice. Get in, lay down. About 20 minutes later, the door comes busting open, and these big, tanned, blonde-headed dudes, like 5 of them, come crashing in the room. Hey, dude, what's up? I'm like, man, is this the Army? This is cool. Well, they were guys that just finished buds going through the Navy SEAL.
Gotcha.
So they leave buds and they come to Benning for airborne school.
Yeah.
So they were cool. It was a weekend. They go, come on, man, we're going to Hilton Head Island. So my first weekend, I'm a sophomore in college. I'm with these big buff, about to be Navy SEALs. And so it became a rude awakening Sunday night when we got back, getting ready to go.
Oh,
and
I bet.
So I went to jump school as a cadet. So then when I went to basic training and showed up at Fort Benning
with jump wings,
with jump, boy, did I get a lot. Attention? I got a lot of attention. Lot of attention.
Yeah, it kind of make you earn those twice when you show up like that.
Well, and it's funny too. Then I went to Ranger school. I got more attention because my brother was an E6 and 175. And several of the RIs now, were all under my brother, and so, I paid the penance of my brother's smoking dudes so just never quit for me, man. I was always on the following edge of smoke. So
how long did you end up staying with 175?
So I did 3 years there. So I was an E5.
Okay.
And I actually, so a guy by the name of Buck Kernan was my battalion commander. Turned out to be a 4-star, famous in Rangers. Took the regiment, jumped the regiment into Panama, and he was a great mentor. And I remember I went to the E6 board, and he says, "Hey man, you got 132 college credits. Have you ever thought about becoming an officer?" I said, "No, sir. I hate officers. Hate them. Don't want to be an officer." It's okay. About 6 months later, out in the field, and he comes back to me again. He goes, "Hey, man, I got a deal for you. My best friend is the commanding general of 28th Infantry Division. He's got a LURS unit. They got a detachment sergeant E7, but can downgrade to E6. How about we send you there? You'll be an AGR guy for a year, and go back to school for a year, get your degree. We'll bring you right back in."
So AGR, for those who are listening, Active Guard Reserve Program, which is still Title 10, and except you're within an MTO of a reserve unit, or you're attached to, say, a reserve command or a guard. Yeah. And the guard has Title 32 as well as Title 10. Both of those, one state operated, like I said, Title 10 is federal. So anyway, I'm sorry, Jim. No.
So it was great. I did that because my brother, several guys from 175 I was in, it was packed. It was packed with former Rangers who were all going to school now in the GI Bill. Mm-hmm. They were all doing it. So we had a great time. Did that for a year, literally. Did it for a year, and the deal was I was just going to do a year, get commissioned, and go. Well, in about 3 weeks before graduation, so May. So I graduated in 89. So I got out in 88, and the commanding general of Cadet Command, a guy named Robert Wagner, I'll never forget that name. We get this letter and it says, "Hey, Cadet Reese cannot get commissioned. He has to go to ROTC advanced camp." Okay, let's see. I'm a staff sergeant. I finished as a distinguished honor grad at Ranger School, and now I got to go to ROTC advanced camp. And I said, "Well, the cadets go to camp, and it's a waiver for camp. If you go to Ranger School, you don't have to go to ROTC advanced camp."
Yeah.
And their response was, "We have no way to assess his leadership ability because he went to Ranger School as a PFC."
Oh, get out of here.
I was like, wow. Yeah.
Sounds like politics.
So what's funny, though, is
you had no NCOERs or anything that you could have shown?
Everything.
What?
Everything. But because I was enlisted,
yeah,
they couldn't assess me as an officer candidate.
Oh. Okay.
Which, remember this now, that drove me through my officer career. That drove me through. I mean, they don't call me Mustang for no reason at all. And so anyway, they actually graduated me and commissioned me, delayed commission for 8 weeks. So I go to camp. I mean, it was a joke.
I'm sure you learned a lot.
I did. But I went, I sucked it up, did my thing, smiled, went down there, helped the cadets who I could. And funny is, my bunkmate, who was a junior at a school in North Carolina, is now might be Lieutenant General Charlie Cleveland, not the SF Intel guy, but big time Ranger Regiment guy, JSOC unit. And so he's a 2 or 3 star right now. So he was my bunkmate at ROTC Advanced Camp.
Wow.
Yeah. So
after that, what ended up happening? You got your commission, you finished the advanced camp, and the officer who gave you the plan, did you end up coming back to 175 then as an officer? Or?
So, well, actually went to 275.
275, okay.
275, yeah, went to 275. Yep, which I really loved. Boy, that was an incredible place to be. And I went from second lieutenant to captain there. So it was, I spent I watched several battalion commanders come, a shitload of company commanders come through. And I had a weapons platoon, a rifle platoon. I was an XO. And then I finished as the S3 Air for the battalion. And again, it's so funny. The guy who replaced me on my way to advanced course as a captain was a guy by the name of Paul LaCamera, who's General 4-star General LaCamera.
I've heard of that guy.
You have, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I did that. I tell the story. For me, the greatest 2 years of my military career was when I commanded in the 1st Cavalry Division. So when I was in as an officer, they had this thing called the light to heavy imperative. So if you were light as a lieutenant, Ranger, 82nd, 100, that you had to go command heavy. And if you were heavy, if you were heavy, you went and commanded light. And everybody bitched, moaned, complained, blah, 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 it shouldn't be. And, again, I always live by the adage, hey man, bring it on, next, there's no reason to bitch. But most of my peers said, screw it, we're going SF. And I love my SF brethren. They have a great mission, and I can come back to that later. But I commanded 2 Ranger platoons, 45, 50 dudes, fire and maneuver. And now I'm going to go back and command 12 guys, on an ODA. Now, granted, they're leading a battalion of Indige, or what. I get all that. And they do a great job, but it just wasn't for me. It wasn't in my piece. And so I went to the 1st Cav. Went to the advanced course and put the big patch on there, and I had my Master Blaster wings and everything. And it was funny. I got there on a Friday night. I went in the division headquarters. And the G1, I didn't know what a G1 was. Never even heard of what a G1 was. Division. What do you mean division? And this female captain said, "Hey, the chief of staff wants to see you." His name was Jackie Colley. He was famous in the armor world. He was an armor officer. He brought me down to his office. In the 1st Cav it's all about the cavalry. The big patches and 1st team and. They really are. I had a great 2 years there. And so Jackie Colley brings me in and he looks at me and he goes, "Bo," had his big southern big cigar, had the big tanker boots on, with the straps all wrapped around. I was like, dude, what the is this, And he must have weighed 300 pounds. He was big dude. Big belly, feet kicking up. If I didn't know better, he had a whiskey on his desk Friday night. And he goes, "Hey, Bo," he says, "The bus, the Fort Benning is that way. You got off the wrong bus, bro, because you don't belong here." I said, "Yes, sir, I do," And so he looked at me. He goes, "Hey, man, other than you and me," and General Shinseki was the division commander.
Oh, at that time frame, wow. Okay.
We're the only 3 Ranger qualified guys in the entire division headquarters. I was like, whoa. And in the Cav, the 1st and 2nd Brigade were all armored, and then the 3rd Brigade was what they call the Infantry Brigade. Was heavy mech and not heavy armor. So I was like, hey, I want to go to the infantry guys. He goes, no. You're going down, and you're going to go be with Colonel McKiernan, Dave McKiernan, in 1st Brigade, Iron Horse. He says, you're going to go learn what M1s and Bradleys are. He says, you're done walking, my brother. You're done walking. So I said, wow, man. So again, in retrospect, best move, the guidance I'd gotten from these guys along the way, because I went and worked for Dave McKiernan. And if you look up that name, retired 4-star general, led the coalition into Iraq in 2003, as a lieutenant general. So he was the coalition commander he pulled me out of CGSC early to come. And then after that, made his 4-star, went to Afghanistan, just a rock star. And I learned so much from that man.
No. For some reason, I'm getting like a teapot sound. Paul said something about it earlier. That's weird. See it right here.
Tell you what, right there. I learned so much from that man about fire and maneuver. In the range, in the light infantry, you put your map in your top left breast hand pocket, because that's about as far as you can go in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Dude, in the armor world, you got maps that are size of of picnic tables. Picnic tables.
That's cool.
And talk about navigating at 50, 60 miles an hour, and learning how to fire and maneuver.
Yeah. Shoot, move, and communicate. And we're talking about move. Yeah. I mean, M1s, you think about the JP4 and those things. So, yeah.
And killing dudes at 4 kilometers away.
Yeah.
And it was funny when I had a great story when I got to the unit. We were doing mobility training. We had the Penzgauers out there with all the 50 cals and Mark 19s. The one thing about the unit is as an officer, you never say, hey, this is the way you do it. You kind of, you got to kind of convince them it was their idea. And if you get that, you're in. And who cares? If you get the same end state, who cares? And so we're at this mobility training, and the guys got the Penzgauers lined up, 50 meters apart. These light guys all like being together, close, And so I'm sitting there, I'm kicking around. I go to my sergeant major and I said, I got this idea. The 50 cal Mark 19. What's the max effective range? I was really playing dumb. What's the max effective range that? Oh, sir, it's blah, 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 And I said, yeah, that's what I thought. I said, so, if we're in this wadi, but we could be here and bad guys are coming up this avenue approach. If we put vehicles here, here, and here, I think we can still cover each other because, hey, where's our combat control guy? Hey, come here, man. Hey, what's the max sheath of a 155 round when they shoot those things? Go, sir, 100 meters. I mean, these guys knew this stuff. Right? I'm like, that's right. I said, so check this out. What if we did this? I got I've got my troop. I got 16 sergeant majors in one troop. The guys look like I got a dick coming out of my forehead. So they all go. Night goes. The next morning, the vehicles are all spread out. We've got almost a click between end here and the guys got it. They got it. They understood that they could be spread out. They could have covering fire. And I learned that all from my days with those 2 years in the armor and mech. That's really the story. That those guys are smart guys. They know how to do fire maneuver. They really do.
Jim, hold on just a second. Are you getting that feedback? Are you guys hearing it in your ears?
Yeah. How's that? Any better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. I don't hear anything. Maybe what might be cool is how was it that you transitioned from first cav into the unit, and was it around this time frame that you just got the itch to get back into the soft community?
Well, no. I mean, I always wanted to. I knew I always wanted to go back soft. It's just the Army said you will go light to heavy, and then I went back. Then I went to 175. So I left first cav.
Okay.
And I went to 175.
Yeah.
I was lined up to go command, and just like captains do, you got to go command first somewhere else, then you line up. So I went to Went to RASP. Is that what it's called, RASP?
Yeah, I think
rope.
It was rope for officers.
Rope. Man, I'm getting old, man. I look at the regiment's stuff now.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
Very different.
I think I look at 275, what they've done out there, and I mean, holy cow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Huge organization now. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I went to rope and was, went to 175, which I was fired up. And
so when you went back, were a lot of the guys that you served with, were some of them still there at least, as NCOs? Yeah.
Absolutely.
What was that like walking in the door now, captain and...
most of them were platoon sergeants, first sergeants, sergeant major.
Wow.
Sergeant major of the battalion. And which was really cool was the battalion XO, Kevin Owens, retired 06. I was his RTO when he was a platoon leader.
Okay.
So now I'm a captain. He's the battalion XO.
You know the whole gamut there then. The sergeant major, the commander. Yeah. It was
a very interesting dynamic to I was blessed, and to kind of go through those aspects. And then which was really cool now was I really had a great understanding of 175 and 275.
Yeah. So
we'd show up at Fort Benning for the Ranger Rendezvous, and it was, I knew 2/3 of the regiment, so always stayed away from those 375 guys.
Bad news, man. Those guys bad news.
But it was fun. Paul, what company were you in?
I was in HHC.
Okay.
So I was a mortar first and then a sniper. So I sort of got to dabble in everybody's deployments. I deployed with all 4 companies. We had 4 at the time.
Wow.
And got to know kind of everybody and see how everybody's a little bit different. Got to do some deployments with 275. Nice. Showed up early, got to jump on some of their missions. So
nice.
It was nice. Yeah, I didn't get that whole single platoon camaraderie that you get when you grow up in a line platoon, and those guys become like your family.
Right.
I was, you train with your HHC platoon, whether it's mortars or snipers, and then you go and you're sort of a strap hanger for whatever line company you get attached to.
What year? When were you there? What years were you there?
2006 to 2012.
Wow, good for you. Good for you.
Good times.
So right as I was getting out, you were got to get there. So yeah, it's changed. So when you say, mortars and snipers in HHC, mortars were in the weapons platoon and the line companies, and we were, snipers were like, all right, who's the best shot? You're going to sniper school. Get over here. It's so much change. Good for you guys. That's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's a good time.
Cool. Yeah.
So how long did you end up staying with 175 then?
Let me think. So I got there. I became the dreaded adjutant, the S1. Colonel Keene was the battalion commander, Pearl Keene, great guy. And then I got lined up to take B Company, which is the company I was enlisted in, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
really cool. And then one day, all the officers from the battalion, we have to come to battalion headquarters, and it's the old one. I guess the new one's beautiful, because we're going to get a Delta brief, the Delta brief. And I'd never been to one. And I knew guys at the unit, trained with them for years, but it just never crossed my mind, And this recruiter started, he went through the whole slideshow, and then this guy walked in, he was just longer hair, bold, good-looking guy, red blonde, and his name was Tony Thomas, and Major Thomas at the time. And he started this whole spiel, and he says, and he was a Ranger. I didn't know him, I think Tony was a 275 guy, but I didn't know him. He was two in front of me. So, and we never had crossed paths, and so he comes up and he starts this whole thing. He says, "Hey, look, the unit is really looking at starting to recruit much harder out of the Ranger Regiment for officers. and he explained why, and, for in the pros and cons for that. And he says, look, I understand, you guys that are coming here, you're going to go, and it was all captains and above, so we know why you're here. You're going to go captains, and all you guys will come out below the zone. Then you're going to make major, and we get all that. Okay. We're going to try to bring you to the dark side here, and I'll tell you why we want to do that. Okay. And we think we can start forming, officers in a different mold in this thing for SOF. And I mean, he really had an interesting idea. And he goes, here's the plan. You go to selection. You make it. You go back and command your company. Then after command, you come to OTC. I mean, my God, man. It's like having a Jack and a Coke. It's like everything. Yeah. And I'm like, this is awesome. And so we're sitting there, and there's probably like 15 or 16 of us, and all the field grades are in the back row. Battalion commander, the 3, the XO, and the LNO. They're all back there. And I remember Major Thomas goes, so is anyone interested in this? Boom! And I shot my hand up in the air. And he looks right at me, and he goes, that's great. And I look left, and I look right, and nobody else in the room has their hand up.
Oh, no.
And the field grades are in the back. I can feel the darts coming at me.
Traitor.
Traitor. And it was funny because Kevin Owens, who he's still a great friend of mine today, he comes up to me, he goes, you disloyal. You disloyal fuck. He says, what are you doing? I go, sir, what do you mean? I go, I can command, I can do I mean, he goes, it's the best of both worlds. He goes, your loyalties to TF Red. Okay, got it, And that's the power of the regiment,
Yeah.
That's the power of the regiment.
Yeah.
And so we were getting ready to launch on we called them JRTs then, maybe JRXs. I think JRXs they became. JRT, we're out there, and the unit's there, and B Squadron is there, and that's where Tony Thomas was. And one night we're at I think Bliss, at Fort Bliss, middle of the night, and we got done, I'm the DACO, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I run into Major Thomas, and him and I sit 2:00 in the morning on the ramp of a Talon, and he starts talking to me all about the unit, blah, blah, blah. And I remember the stories my brother had seen. I'd see some of the guys, and I'd seen guys that I knew from my old days, but in those days, you just never went over there,
Yeah.
You just never crossed over there because you didn't want people thinking you were being disloyal, or perish the thought, hey, don't put Oakleys on, or, don't roll your sleeves, oh, you can't do that,
Yeah.
And so he talked to me about it, and I said, man, I really want to do this. So I filled out my packet, and I got everything, and boom, off I went. And, I tell people, I get a lot of guys ask me, hey, sir, I'm going to go to selection. What do I need to know? I said, nothing. Nothing. Don't ask anybody. Don't take advice, especially from dudes that have never made it, Yeah. And I said, you're going to get a packet from them, and it's going to tell you, it's going to say, to be successful, you must be able to do this. Follow that to a T, And what I've learned through the years is they tell you what to do. Our problem in the military is we want to spin more crap into it,
Yep.
So, I really went without knowing much at all. I didn't know anything about selection.
Yeah.
There were guys there talking, oh, I know this, and day 3 we're doing this. And I just went, blah, 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 blah. And, I kept going. Man, I learned so much about myself during that time. Years later, because I know about the chicken bones and I know how it's run now, I was blade running. Towards the end of the course, I was blade running. And I had 2 bad days. I had 2 bad days where, I came in right just minutes before the end time, you know? So I lost time, which is all about time and movement, you know, and being efficient with your piece. And I think where I learned was on the long walk, the 40 miler. And I knew I waited all night, and these dudes were starting, you know, all during the night. Guys were, and I was like, man, it got to be like 2:30 in the morning. There was 2 guys left, and they called my name, you know, blood 42. And I got up and, you know, show me where you are, show me where you're going. You know, here's your first RV. And I took off. And, you know, I learned a lot about land navigation up there that I thought I knew. And it was a beautiful night. And one of the things I decided is, you know, there's one time you were allowed to use the roads. And because it was a beautiful night, I was able to use the stars to navigate and not have to be stopping all the time. And, man, I ran 40 miles because I just knew that I was blade running, you know?
Yeah.
So and I remember the next day, and, you know, and you talk about, and I've seen things you guys should do. There's guys that, you know, man, the NCOs in my life, especially when I became an officer, even though I was a Mustang and I was man, those guys, man, they groomed me to what I became, you know? And I hit Otter Creek, and I was going up the mountain, and I was bonking. And there was an NCO from 275 who actually got bounced out of 275. He got RFS'd and went over to first group. And let me tell you what, if it wasn't for that guy, I would have never made it. And he became a superstar in the unit. I mean, he was unbelievable operator and, you know, did his thing and went out. But you know, I was passing guys all during the night, and then I was boinking and I was losing it. And I didn't, you know, I was trying to eat and do my things, and he passed me. And because he was in my platoon at 275. He's in my platoon. And he goes, come on, boss, just get on my ass and don't stop. And he kept feeding me them little tiny Snickers, you know, the little ones you get in Halloween to give the kids, little squares.
Yeah.
And he kept feeding them to me. Boom. And he goes, just keep eating. Man, and he literally pulled me up that mountain, you know, and what probably seemed like a week, you know, was probably 30 minutes, you know, an hour. I got to the top, and I got renewed and took off. And the reason I think I knew that I was blade running, because as I was coming down the end, you know, and I'm looking, there's a split in the road, and thank God I chose the right split, because there were dudes who took the left split and they never showed up again. And you were only a mile from the end. And I remember as I'm coming across, all of a sudden all these people start coming out of the woods, you know, and I see the S&T, you know, the sergeant major and the commander, and they just come out of the woods like, whoa, you know, like ghosts, like, whoa. And all of a sudden the sergeant major, he just reaches out to me and says, great job, sir. We weren't expecting you. You know, we weren't expecting you. And he goes, give me your ruck. And I go, no, Sergeant Major. He goes, no, give me your ruck. And then all these other operators came out, you know, and they grabbed my ruck, they grabbed my weapon. They're like patting you. I'm like, whoa. I mean, you know, it was really weird. Patting me on the back and great job, man. Come on over here. And then, you know, then the officer came over to me, had a stern face, and he goes, congratulations. The officer selection starts now. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean the officer starts now? You know, they take you to Spire and they give you food and everything, and it was a great deal. But at the end of that, you know, you go through what they call the commander's board. You know, and the commanders are in and they ask all these questions, and officers go through this whole different thing. And some guy by the name of Colonel Bargewell, who, man, rest in peace, man. What a great guy. I knew him for years before. And I was in there for about an hour, and then he stood up and he goes, Jim, I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. He says, it's kind of funny too. A lot of Rangers, they go and they get into it and they grow their hair. And, before I went to the board, I shined my boots. I brought a pair of starches and spits with me, cut my hair because, hey man, I'm going to a board now and I'm a Ranger, This is how it is. This is how we are. We represent the regiment, So I walk in there, whoosh, boom, yes, sir. He goes, hey, we're going to change the rules on you. He says, we know when you came here, we said that if you came and you did well, that you'd go back, command your company, and then you come back up in 2 years. He says, we want you to come now. I'm like, ugh. And he said to me, he goes, hey, he says, it's okay. He says, you don't have to say anything. This will be between me and the RCO. It was a guy by the name of Stan McChrystal, the Pope. Pope. So anyway, so I'm like, wow. And I'm sitting there contemplating it and thinking through everything I just went through. And I remember being in the Pittsburgh airport and a guy that I went through selection with, OTC with, A Squadron with, works for me today at times at the range complex. It's a guy named Sergeant Major Jimmy Hall. And we were, he was an SF guy, but we met there. We both looked at each other and said, beer? And we drinking a beer and, we're staring out at the planes. And right there I said, dude, I'm going. It's like, and people ask me, well, I said, it's like you've been playing, you're the greatest ball player in the AAA, AAA team, and you're waiting to get called up by the Yankees, and that's how I kind of describe it. It's like, I just got called up by the Yankees.
Yeah.
And do you go or do you go, well, I'm get the chance now to be the captain and pitch for 2 years in AAA. And I said, nope, I'm going to go, and it pissed off a lot of people, pissed off Colonel McChrystal big time.
Yeah. I was going to say you had to have some negative feedback after that decision.
Yeah. Because I was the first one.
Oh,
I was the first guy. I was the first guy. This is the new, and again, it wasn't even, I wasn't the first one who went back and then went back up. I went, and then I broke the contract. We broke the contract we were doing.
Well, that's got to be an uneasy precedent to set as well for that chain of command.
It was. Well, let me tell you who the number 2 guy who came was. A guy by the name of Tom Greer.
Yep.
And he did the same thing I did, which really pissed off General McChrystal. I mean, and in retrospect, and as you get older, I know why, because, McChrystal was like, hey, I'm mentoring and preparing these guys to be the next leadership in the regiment. And boom, now I got to go do other draft choices. I got to go find other guys now, And so I get that. I get that, but I didn't care. A couple of the guys later on, they commanded, then came up, but it got to be a pretty good little pipeline, which was neat.
You ended up spending a considerable amount of time involved
10 years.
Within the unit in various different positions. So you were exposed to so many different levels. It had to be a really awesome experience to be able to command at different, and lead different roles in that environment.
The most humble, it's the most humbling aspects it really could be. Command, whether it's in the 1st Cav, the regiment, the unit, just, kind of being a servant leader it's humbling. It is humbling. And it's how I do today, even with my companies. It's, I think when I sold Tiger Swan last year, I think we'd gone back through 12, almost 13 years of owning the company. I think we had hired close to 50 veterans,
Wow.
And 50 veterans at least through the years, probably more, and then large number from the regiment, and lots of former Rangers, did a lot of work, great work for us through the years. So, it's humbling, and it's always good to watch people who can break out and do well and and do those things. And, you know, I again, the guys, my wingmen, the Mark Youngs, the Pat Savages, the Jesse Lays, I mean, the guys, you know, Donnie Harris, you know, Brian Searcy, guys that were my wingmen through my years in the regiment. And I mean, man, they prepared me. They prepared me. They were the best mentors. They were really the best mentors that were out there. Those guys. They could have been officers. They could have been officers. Really, they were better than most of my peers. You know, so.
Yeah, I've always felt like that about NCOs and senior NCOs in the regiment. I'm like, these guys. You look at officers and you're like, well, what do we really need you for in the regiment? Sometimes, I mean, that's from a junior enlisted perspective. Obviously, everybody plays their role, but yeah, I've always kind of felt the same way about those guys and the mentorship I received. I think it's interesting. You've been to 2 very elite premier units, and you still like that. The time you spent commanding in 1st Cav, that seems like just as invaluable to all the things you did after that as well.
It's the real Army, you know. It's. Let me tell you what, the young men there wanted to be you. They wanted to be you. Certain circumstances, environment, something happened. You know, they went to the recruiter, and the recruiter said, "Yeah, you can go. You know, you go to Fort Benning. You'll go to the regiment.
Yep.
You know, next thing you're on a slow boat to China. You know, to Fort Hood, Texas." So, but you know, and then there were guys that didn't want to be there. There were guys that had to be there because if not, they were going to jail. You know, and they didn't have a choice. So you had this plethora of guys that want to be like you, you know, guys that were, guys that, nah. And so now, and again, to put those aspects together and then to work with other people that had different visions and looking at, you know, different types of mobility and plans. And, I mean, to, you know, we see JRTC. Let me tell you, if you've never been, if you're out there and you're listening, you've been to JRTC, that is the premier training for a light infantryman. But let me tell you what, go to the National Training Center at Fort Irwin. Wow. Yeah. Wow. I mean, again, the speed of movement, the decision making, the risks, you know, being out there, you know, hundreds and hundreds of miles you're moving, trying to figure out the logistics and food and air and how do you talk?
Read a map.
And, you know, and I remember my master gunner. I'm never, you know, here I come. You know, I come into my, you know, I'm Banshee 6. I'm a former Ranger. My master gunner for my M1, it was really cool. I had both M1s and Bradleys because my brigade commander said, "Hey, we're going to make you the counter advanced guard counter recon guy."
You were CAV. So you split.
I'm a CAV. Yeah. I'm a CAV guy. I'm not
that's me.
I'm not Army. I'm a CAV, which is cool. But my master gunner on the tank, dude, he was a roly-poly guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I get in my tank with my jungle boots on. He goes, "Sir, do that again. I will cut your feet off." He says, "We have rubber boots. You put these tennis shoes on." Because that was their home. These guys lived in their. I mean, you didn't bring mud in. You didn't bring mud. You know, the infantry guys in the back of the Bradley, dude, just, you know, trash. But an M1, man,
we had rubber mats in the bottom. It was clean. Yeah, we had a bucket that we used to clean that thing all the time. It was white in the inside of the hole, and that's the way it was designed to be. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But I hated tanker boots. I actually like jungle boots myself.
Yeah, you know, and then he said to my member first time we're out in the range. And he goes, "Sir, if you ever touch, you know, the joystick, the commander has the override." He goes, "If you ever touch that joystick, I will cut your hands off." You know?
I love it because you actually got an opportunity, like you're talking about, though, to command individuals. Like typically, you know, you go to SOF, you got individuals who volunteered to go into the military. Then they
3 times,
right? They volunteer, right? And so you think about all those volunteer stages. These are people who really want to be there, hungry, want to, you know, live on every word. You've got a different type of individual you're trained to lead when you go to a conventional force, you know, and it's not a bad thing. I'm saying it's individuals that you've got to create true teamwork, camaraderie, trust, all those types of things that tend to be a lot more easier in a soft type of environment.
Well, and if there's any Rangers out there, it might be a little bit, I don't even know if they teach this anymore, but there was a thing called the Abrams Charter. Abrams Charter. It's what the regiment was, the battalions were set up back again, in the 70s. And General Abrams said, you come in, you become the best soldiers, then I want you to go back out to the rest of the Army. And, it's the ink spot, put ink, whoosh. And so I don't think that it a little did in the NCO Corps. The NCOs just stayed. But it was really what the officers were supposed to do, was go back out there. But let me tell you, come 9/11, Afghanistan not as much because, Operation Anaconda did. But in Iraq, I knew the senior Army leadership. General Shinseki was my division commander. The Corps commander was my brigade commander. The guy who commanded the lead brigade in the 3rd ID during the Blitzkrieg was Will Grimsley. He was our 3. He was my battalion 3. All these guys now from the 1st Cav were all leading the Army. Yeah. And they're like, hey, it's our Ranger. I was their token soft guy. I was their token soft. Yeah. But it's unfortunately sometimes it's all about just personalities, bridging the gap. Yeah. Yeah. And what made me proud, and I still see it today, is before this all happened. Soft and conventional, conventional forces getting together and talking and working together, non-existent. Yeah. Non-existent. And to watch today, even over in Syria, I'm taking pictures. We pull up behind a Bradley with the American flag flying, and then I see the soft vehicles over there, the Land Rovers with the big antennas on them, trying to fool people. Right. It's really cool. It's a really cool thing to watch.
Yeah. Well, and I think, that instilled a certain, like you said, a servant leadership, but that it instilled a certain type of leadership of the people, obviously, who mentored you along the way. They gave you those opportunities. But, I say there's a lot that goes into right place, right time, but we have to play a role in that. We have to be, humble. We have to be willing to learn, be a sponge, willing to, expose ourselves to new environments and changing things. That allows us to create those tools in the toolbox that hopefully later on we can go and then mentor under other individuals. And I think that's some of the things that they picked up very early in your career about how you are as an individual, obviously, to get where you are. So how was the transition for you? I do ask sometimes, when guys make the transition, obviously you became an entrepreneur at some point, but how was it making that transition to the private sector?
For me, it was, I just never wanted to work for anybody again. I was done with that. Yeah. I was done. And I'm not going to fool anybody. I didn't have an MBA. I didn't know. I just knew that I knew how to lead. I knew how to plan. And I knew if someone had a problem, I could probably fix it. I could probably find an outcome to help them get to a better state. And I'm a big risk taker. I'm a risk taker, and my wife hates it. She literally hates it. Can't stand it. And, I try to explain to people, what is risk, and there's textbook answers for it. But really, at the end of the day, I think the people that are the best risk takers are ones that they're masters of managing stress and fear.
Today, that's so important.
Man, you've got to be able to manage your stress and fear. I have been scared to death my entire life. I really have. I've had generals say, man, Jim, how was it owning your own company? Sir, it's great. It's great. And they go, I sleep like a baby. And they go, really? Oh, yeah. I wake up every 2 hours crying. Wake up every 2 hours crying. You're worrying about payroll. The problem for us in the military is we've been sucking off Uncle Sugar our whole lives. Yep. We're, especially soft guys. Oh, I broke my weapon. Oh, here's a new one. Not like that in the first cav and third, but the soft guys, I mean, we're spoiled. We're entitled. We really are. I mean, don't get me wrong. We work our butts off for it, and you train. But we get a little bit of entitlement sometimes, I think.
Well, there's an element of reality that's sort of missing when you're in special operations, because you get to focus just on your job and you get to stay in just your lane, and the support you get is tremendous. I mean, so many personnel just to support one SOF service member, and then you get out and you kind of have this false idea about what you're really capable of. And I think guys get tested when they transition. It's like, oh, I'm awesome, but I also had the best mentorship and the best support that money could buy.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And it is key to try to find a mentor in the business world. It's tough sometimes, but it's I loved it. It was scary as hell. There was so much stress. I didn't tell my wife that, I put our house on a second mortgage, so I could get a credit card, a business credit card, Yeah. But you learn things so fast. I remember, and there's luck, man, there is luck involved in this stuff too. You got to be, like you said, right place at right time.
Yep. Strong network. And that's how we got our network. And, you start with what you know. So we started doing some little dabbling and training. And so I'd be out there helping, my partner was a former sergeant major, training guys, but I'm like, that's not what I want to do. I want to build, build something here. And we got our first opportunity. And again, being a veteran and being a disabled veteran, we got to do, the big companies needed a service disabled veteran small business to be part of that contract. Boom. Yeah.
And we fit in. And the one thing I try to tell people is, when you get that first home run and you see your first profit margin, don't bring it back. If you really want to be a businessman, bring it back into the company, take a little bit out, take care of your family, but bring it back into the company. And that's what we did. We bought all of our systems, our accounting system, finance system, all those things. So then when the big boys started calling again, they go, hey, we need this. They go, yes, we can do that. And then usually the big guys say, okay, what are you going to need from us? Because, they end up doing it all. And we just say, nothing. Give us our task and get out of the way. Nice. They love that.
Yeah.
I don't need your finance. I don't need your lawyers. We got it. Just give us our task, give us our task order. Boom.
Yeah.
Let us run.
No, that I agree. That is so important. That is what a lot of people lose sight of, is they end up starting off with a small organization. They come into a great contract or something like that as an entrepreneur. And you're so right. In a lot of cases, what they end up doing is, paying themselves before they do anything else and not really reinvesting back within the company to be able to move it forward. But I think what you also did too is by creating these systems, although they seem like something that you may not necessarily need, it provided you opportunities by which if an organization wanted to do business with you, you had data available. You had information that you could readily provide them to show through metrics what you guys are doing from a financial basis, customer satisfaction, whatever the case may be. Hey, you want to know? We've got it right here. We'll be an open book for you, as opposed to doing a little bit of soft shoe or tap dancing and trying to get their questions answered. And that was probably a big step for you guys as well.
Now, that's a great point. I don't think young entrepreneurs also realize, the dynamics. I mean, doing the operation, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. It's the compliance. It's the legal aspects. It's, oh, by the way, when, you come on with a big contractor and they go, hey, let us see your $3 million in general liability and, GOPL, personal liability insurance. What do you mean? Mm-hmm. Well, we need to see your certificate of insurance. And then you call insurance company and they go, oh yeah, you need $3 million. It's this. And oh, by the way, that's a one-time payment by January 20th of every year.
Right.
And for $1 million, that's about $80,000 Boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't collect, don't cross go, don't collect $200. You want $1 million of GLPL? Give us $80,000. Here it is.
Yeah.
I mean, hello. Welcome to the reality of running a business.
Yep. And they're going to use the reason why they ask you to do that is because the company and client that you're working with want to use your insurance before they tap their own, especially if you were engaged in it for some reason and something happened. Yeah, absolutely. So that's why you have it. It's not just so that you can carry your certificate, but they're going to make sure they use yours first.
Especially if you're doing, security, consulting, or, if you're going to go into, work overseas,
Yeah.
The other thing is, and if you bring people on, well, you better have insurance in case something happens to them.
Yeah.
Or they're going to come take your house.
Yep.
So.
But you've obviously been very successful in everything that you've done. I really appreciate you coming on the show and, of course, sharing your experiences and giving some great nuggets here. I think that people should be able to take away and learn from. There's so many lessons that we learn within life, some we don't always remember. But, you've shared some amazing stories and some items here that I think are real and things that people are facing today with fear, with depression, with the virus being around and us being kind of cooped up. We're learning to manage individuals remotely that we perhaps didn't have to do that before. All kinds of new things that are happening with not just trying to meet the bottom line and to help our constituents, as far as our business and maintaining it. So I think you really touched on all those aspects, and I can't thank you enough.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. And thanks for what you guys are doing. Please keep up the great work, what you're doing. It's needed out there. And if I can ever do anything for you, let me know.